Breaking right now, scheming Sturgeon, the woman who destroyed Scotland and actually almost destroyed the rights of women forever, has quit politics. She will leave Holyrood as the most destructive Scottish politician in history. And while we are not able to say much, just remember, this woman remains under police investigation. And it's really not a surprise that Sturgeon has decided to walk off the stage, given the response to her at the weekend when she was booed by hundreds of ordinary Scottish women on International Women's Day because of her absolute destructive policies, which, let's just remember for one moment, saw a man, a rapist, put behind bars with biological women. Watch. And as Denise Finlay tweeted or posted on X, come. And Father Calvin Robinson, it's fascinating, isn't it, that the hill scheming Sturgeon chose to die on was over claiming that men can be women, putting women at huge risk. And yet she still today, Calvin, claims to be a feminist. She makes me sick, and she leaves the political scene in shame.
I remember there was a time she was putting men into women's prisons, rapists into women's prisons, and she couldn't talk about the difference between men and women. She was talking about men, women, and rapists. And me and Amanda were on your panel and said it seems like she believed in 3 different genders: men, women, and rapists. It's absurd that she didn't want to protect women's rights and women's safety. But of course, Nicola Sturgeon is the one that brought in the gender recognition bill that was just trans ideology in law. And then there's the fact that she also wanted to have an illegal independence referendum too, because she couldn't accept the results of the one that she already had because she was so ardent in that. And then there was her abuse of powers over COVID, the executive powers that she had in Scotland. She run roughshod over the nation, just like Mark Drakeford did in Wales. It was insane to see that happen. And in fact, it shows that we have too much devolution of power in Scotland, if anything, to be honest with you. But I am pleased to see that she has left British politics. I'm pleased to see she won't be returning for the near future, because we'll all be better off for that.
And Father Calvin, can we also just take a moment to remember that her policies have been so bad for the Scottish people? As you know, my partner is Scottish. I spend a lot of time in Scotland. I absolutely love Scotland. But under her leadership, the health system has spiraled out of control. Scotland is now the drug death capital of Europe. And they are areas that were devolved to Scotland. We should also never forget, by the way, that she's so sick in the head, and I really do mean that she decided to use the pandemic to try and sow distrust and to try and create a border between Scotland and England. It was disgraceful, and people don't call her out for that. But first, the reason you're watching this show is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to trust mainstream media or the so-called fact checkers who claim to determine which facts are true. And there's a good reason for that, given the debate over free speech, the controversy surrounding Brexit, and how Trump and other politicians challenging the status quo are portrayed. So I've got the solution. It's called Ground News, and it's the best way to stay informed and cut through media bias and narratives so you can get the facts for yourself. Go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out right now, and I've got an amazing discount too. But let me show you this incredible website and app and action first. So let's look at the recent speech that Vice President of the US, JD Vance, gave to the Munich Security Conference. He tore into European countries, including our government here in the UK, over the complete rolling back of free speech, which is a real concern for me. And you can see that 361 sources covered this story. But what Ground News does, and it's amazing, is immediately show how the story is being covered, broken down by whether the organizations lean to the left or the right. This is called the bias distribution service. Now you can scroll down and see every article about the topic broken down by the political position and ownership of the publication. So, for example, Newsmax, GB News, gave fair and accurate coverage, focused very much on how Vance was, I guess, being brave enough to point out some uncomfortable truths. But the lefty publications, of course, they went with their normal narrative. HuffPost claimed the speech left all of Europe aghast. It really didn't. The Independent decided to lead on a nonsense claim about a joke over Elon Musk. But what's more is that Ground News gets to know you personally. It provides you with the news stories you're interested in, while also analysing your own biases. So my favourite feature is this thing called the blind spot feed. It surfaces upwards of 20 stories every day that you might not be hearing about because of the corruption of the mainstream media. Now, I know you love the news, but you don't trust the legacy media. That's why you're watching Outspoken. What Ground News does is give you the tools to understand the truth. I have to be honest, it's now the only way I read the news because it allows me to see through manipulative mainstream media narratives. Go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. Subscribe through my link for 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use for unlimited access. Ground News is subscriber funded, and supporting my sponsors also supports my work. So for less than a Netflix subscription, you can get all the world's news in one place and think for yourself. It's been a game changer for a news junkie like me. That's ground.news/outspoken. But now, back to the show.
You essentially did. I remember traveling to Scotland during COVID on a train. So bear in mind, we're on the same train with the same people for hours on end. We cross over into Scotland and we all had to put our face masks on. It was absurd that you're breathing the same air for all these hours, and then suddenly there's a demand. The Scottish government have said you must put on a nappy on your face. Of course, many of us refused, but it was the Scottish government were tyrannists at that point. I mean, we still don't know the conclusion of all the fraud as well that's gone on within that party.
No, we don't. And I mean, again, we're not going to go too far into it, Father Calvin, because, you know, they'd be delighted to lock us up, wouldn't they, in Scotland? But we can just say...
Come and get me in West Michigan.
Yeah, but we can just say once her husband was charged, he was soon binned off. And all of a sudden, she's spending a lot of time with her best mate, a lesbian Scottish comedian. Just saying. Now, the problem is that Sturgeon's legacy has spread to a whole new breed of hard left politicians in the United Kingdom. And one of them is Carla Denyer. She is the co-leader of the Green Party. She has continued with Sturgeon's gender madness. And on LBC, which, remember, is a left-wing station itself, she was humiliated. Watch this.
As a woman doesn't make you a woman.
I trust people to be an expert in their own gender. If someone has been living as a woman for 15 years...
What does that mean, living as a woman?
Well, it means what I've said.
Well, what does it mean? What does it mean to live as a woman?
I don't really know how I can answer the question again. If a trans woman
you
has
wear
been...
dresses, you read certain books, you like something, what does it mean? I mean, not every woman lives wearing a dress, not every woman wears makeup.
No, indeed, and that's a much larger question about kind of gender discourse and feminism more widely. But my point is that if someone is a woman, has lived as a woman for many years, needs support because they've experienced misogynistic abuse, I want them to be able to access that support. It's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that. Now, Father Calvin, JK Rowling, who has been Sturgeon's biggest critic, the thorn in her side, because she's a true feminist Scottish icon, can I just say, posted in response to that interview, this is what happens when you ask a gender ideologue to explain one of their cherished cliches. Incredulity at it being challenged, repetition of the cliche as though its meaning is obvious, then helpless floundering. But she'll still leave the studio certain she's the clever one. I suffer from an overdeveloped vicarious embarrassment gland, which is why I can't watch shows like X Factor. But when it comes to gender identitarians, I just reach for the popcorn. And so do I, Father Calvin, because she calls herself a feminist. And then quite rightly, the presenter is saying, well, what do you mean? Do you mean putting on lipstick? Do you mean acting like Dylan Mulvaney? And she crumbled. She crumbled.
If someone has been living as a woman, she might as well have just said if they identify as a woman. She doesn't support women. She's not a feminist. She supports the woke ideology that all men can just become women by saying they're women. We know that's not biologically true. It's not ontologically true. It's not even socially true. It's a lie that the hard left were peddling for so long, but we're past that now. And even LBC, for goodness sake, lefty rag, is asking the question, well, what do you mean? And it's amazing to see that the tide is turning, that even the legacy media dare ask a simple question.
Indeed, indeed. Now, speaking of the legacy media, Father Calvin, there was a great moment overnight where Peter Navarro of the Trump administration, he is the president's senior trade advisor, finally called out those lunatics at Sly News when their Washington correspondent, Mark Stone, was doing what they always do, Father Calvin, and just needling and nudging and being genuinely annoying and purposefully misrepresentative. And he just tells them, stop that crap. It's actually beautiful to watch, and I wish right-wing politicians in the UK had these balls.
And that's not going to happen again.
But the president seems to be changing his mind by the hour at the moment.
You gotta move out of the way so we can
What are your views on the fact that
you don't understand what a negotiation looks like. The president is negotiating strategically. So stop with the rhetoric, okay? Just stop that crap.
But he does seem to be changing his mind all the time.
Stop that crap.
But is that part of it?
Sir, where are you from?
From Sky News UK.
Yeah.
May I ask you
Come on.
Yeah, Mr. Navarro. But why is that? Why is that? It's a fact that he's changing his mind every single day.
It's a negotiation, my friend.
Right. So he doesn't mean it. So it's all part of a negotiation. And it's causing havoc to the stock markets.
It's not causing havoc.
Well, it is. They are tumbling.
Yeah, Mr. Navarro.
I'll take other questions.
For folks who
But do you?
back up.
Mr. Navarro, can
Well,
you
I'm allowed to ask questions, aren't I?
Have asked
folks who
three.
weren't out
So
here.
you don't believe that it's causing havoc to the stock market?
Here's what we can do. I can either stay here and answer questions and you can be civil about it, or you can hector me like this. So stand back, get that thing out of my face. You've had your chance to ask questions.
I just loved it. I loved it. And you could see, as soon as Mark Stone said Sky News UK, you could see Peter Navarro is just like, yep, totally, we understand. Mainstream media scumbags.
And you're absolutely right when you said, well, I wish we had right-wing politicians like this in the UK. It's all we need. Someone who just says, no, enough, done. I'm not playing your silly game. The bad faith questions, the hectoring, like let's have a decent civil conversation in good faith, and let's not make these presumptions that the mainstream media, because what it is they're trying to do, they're painting a narrative. They're painting a narrative that Trump doesn't know what he's doing, and he's changing his mind all the time, and this is harming the economy, which of course that's not what's happening, but that's what they want to portray. And their job isn't to portray a narrative. Their job is to get the information out of Navarro and get it out to the public to make their minds up. But these right-wing politicians in America see through all this, and they're able to just stand up and say, well, no, don't want to play that. We need people like that in the UK, we really do.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.